All right. Morning, everybody. So, welcome to our postural. What are we doing? Posture and balance today. So, welcome to the clean half of my house. We're going to focus on some head to toe stretching. So, this morning will be about 45 minutes. I forgot that I've got a Zoom call at 10 a.m. So, I'll finish it a little bit earlier today, but we'll make sure we get through all of our postural stretches and a few little balance challenges with different options, different challenges along the way that we can play and modify with, as always, in our practice. So especially practicing from home with our balance, we don't need any equipment for this morning or for any of my classes, but if you've got things at home, blocks, bolsters, you're welcome to use them. If you've got pillows and blankets rolled up, if you'd like those for support, or as we're doing our balance this morning, if you've got pillars, walls, couches, chairs that you'd like to position your mat or move to your mat for a little bit of support for your balance, it's always nice if you're feeling a bit shaky to have that support there. So we'll get started by laying down in our Shavasana, taking our full rest. So that's both mentally and physically something that we maybe don't always make time for rest-wise. So we may relax, we might put on movies, we might read books, we might have something that we like to do to relax or to rest, but we're still keeping that mind active. We're still trying to keep that thought process going in some way. And so this Shavasana at the beginning of our practice is just to notice whatever we've got going on in the mind, any activity. We're not trying to add, change, get rid of anything. We're just allowing ourselves to take a step back, to not be as caught up in whatever we've got going on. Whatever comes, allowing it to come. Whatever stays, allowing it to stay. And whatever goes, allowing it to go. We can put down any to-do lists, any of that commentary that we run over the top of our practice. We can always pick it up later in the day, but we'll do so with a much more refreshed mindset. As we tune into our breath, to notice the volume of air that we're taking in and out. Not just the volume of the air, but the quality of the breath, how at ease we are from one inhale to the following exhale. Ironing out any creases. Just making each breath as smooth as possible, especially today when we get into our balance, is when we really might start to notice when we tense to hold our balance, the breath can be one of the first things to go. But it can make a big difference. The more at ease we are in our breath, the more ease we are at our balance. Just noticing any areas that we have this morning, especially with our postural flow, those tightnesses, those tensions that store in the muscles, our problem areas, whether we're desk workers with neck and shoulders, maybe tight hips. If we play a lot of sport or active, maybe it's hip flexors, maybe it's lower back. But our practice is self-care. Just keeping that mindset of kindness towards those spaces, those muscles, those areas of the body that need it the most this morning. So we start to wriggle through fingers and toes, warming up those extremities. We'll draw the knees in towards the chest, squeezing in nice and tight, adding our little rock left and right. I was mentioning before that lower back. This is the one I like to start with coming out of Shavasana, to check in with the hips and lower back. can be a lot of compression in these lower vertebrae, we can just add these circles or whatever movement feels good. So we're listening to our own body around these hips. Where's tight? Where can we move through that feels good for the body this morning? And then coming back to center. We'll take the hands to the knees. We'll take our butterfly circles. So we're drawing the knees in towards the chest. A little further. Take them out nice and wide away from each other. Down towards the back of our mat, where we draw them back in over the hips. So maybe start small if we're feeling tight through this hip area, through the groin. If we'd like to grow the circles out, we can. Moving through that range of motion a little bit further. And then when we're ready, changing directions. So when the knees come over the hips, we're taking them out away from each other, towards the chest where they come back in towards each other. Drawing those knees back to center, taking our happy baby, opening the soles of the feet towards our ceiling or sky. Feeling those knees lower down towards the mat as we lengthen our tailbone towards the floor. We can add our little rock here. So we're moving up the back into any tight muscles that we can just roll our body weight gently into. Giving it that little massage. And then drawing the soles of the feet together, we're going to tuck our chin in towards the chest. Drawing the feet and the head towards each other. Noticing if those shoulders, if we're prone to that shoulder tension, if they're coming up towards the head or the ears, feeling them relax down. We're keeping that space around the neck and the head. And then releasing here. We're going to keep hold of our right foot with the right hand, taking this left leg nice and long, coming into a half happy baby this time. So just that right side. So feeling that right knee lowering down, that sole of the foot still open towards the ceiling. Remembering if that's uncomfortable, if that feels too tight, we can take hold of the calf or maybe just behind the hamstring if that's easier. So if we feel that head and shoulders come off the mat, make that grip a little easier for us, a bit more accessible. And then bending that left knee, we'll swap sides. So taking hold of that left foot with the left hand, extending that right leg out nice and long, taking a half happy baby on this side. So using that left arm to draw this left knee down. But we're watching that tension doesn't spread up the shoulder and neck. If we're grimacing in any way, feeling that just melt away. So it should feel like an effortless effort. Effortless action. And releasing this side, we'll curl into our ball, tucking those knees to chest, rocking our forwards and backwards, using that momentum to come up. So coming to seated, we'll get straight into these neck and shoulders this morning. So inhaling, taking this left arm up and over our side neck. That right arm can rest in the lap or we can extend it out. Taking that lengthening, just notice how that affects the stretch, if it feels good for us, or whether it's best just to ease off and maybe just relaxing that right arm is comfortable enough for us. releasing a little, we'll turn our gaze, tucking of the chin. Take that breath in to open through the chest. So this is our postural flow, and one of the things that I'm prone to doing when I'm sitting down for too long is I'll hunch that back. So if we are sitting here and we start to feel ourselves slouch into the pose, just use a breath in, feel the sides of the body lengthen up. And just keeping the back of this neck on stretch. This is our keyboard tension muscle if we're sitting at a desk typing a lot. Releasing this side, inhale, right arm up and over. Now option again to extend that arm out if that feels good for the neck. Releasing, turn the gaze. We're looking past that armpit to the floor, lengthening along the back of the neck. And again, check in. Do we need to take that inhale to lift us up a little taller? Also notice if those knees start to come up, seeing if we can just relax those down. So we're soft through the hips, tall through the torso. Releasing out this side. We're going to inhale, arms up nice and tall. As we exhale, we'll take this right arm down and underneath the left. So coming into our eagle arms option to take those palms facing each other behind, or if it's available, maybe taking those right fingers into that left palm. From here, we're keeping the shoulders relaxed, but we're lifting up through the elbows. So taking those fingers, pointing up towards the ceiling. We're getting that opening across the upper back, the backs of the shoulders. But notice if we're pulling those shoulders up, keeping those relaxed down. So shoulders, shoulder blades relaxed down, elbows lift, leading with those fingertips. Just space through the back of the shoulders that we don't get to stretch very often. And releasing this side, inhale, hands rise. Exhale, opposite side, that left arm this time coming down and around. You can either place the palms back of the hands back to back, or we can place palms facing together, getting that extra little wrap. Settle through the shoulders and then lift through the elbows. And releasing down this side, let's walk forwards into our tabletop position. So we're on all fours, spreading those fingers wide. We'll take our cat-cow. So on our breath out, we'll take a breath in first. On the exhale, rounding through the spine, tucking that chin in towards the chest. On our inhale, we're opening that chest through the arms towards the front of our mat. And exhale, tucking under. Beautiful. Inhale to open, drop through the tummy. Exhale as if we're lifting the back of the heart towards the sky. Inhale, open it to the front. Exhale, tucking under. Coming back to our neutral spine. We'll warm up our little balance this morning. We're going to inhale the right arm, left leg nice and long. So we're just holding here, engaging through the core. So a big part of our balance is that core engagement, drawing that belly button in towards the spine. Keeping that lower back nice and long, that left heel lifted. We want to be steady through the shoulders and hips. Releasing this side, hand and knee to floor, swapping sides. Inhale, left arm, right leg out nice and long this time. Again, draw that belly button in. One more inhale. Exhale, release. Back to our first side. If we're feeling we're getting enough of a balance challenge here, so stabilizing through those shoulders and hips we can hold, or if we'd like to, we can take our awkward aeroplane, that arm and leg coming out to the side. If we'd like to make it a little bit more dynamic, on our exhale, coming back to center, actually on an inhale, coming back to center. Exhale, taking that arm and leg out. So if we want that dynamic balance, that dynamic movement, stable as we can all the way through. And returning that hand or arm and leg to center, releasing back to the mat, swapping sides, right leg, left arm long. So getting stable here, even if we like that extra dynamic movement, hold steady first. Then if we'd like to, we can take that awkward aeroplane. Or starting to move through. Last round. And releasing that hand and knee to the mat. Coming into a downward puppy. So while we're on our hands and knees, we'll walk these hands forwards, opening the chest towards the mat. We can rest the forehead or the chin towards the floor. So just keeping those hips over the knees. If we'd like to deepen a little further, we can come up, propping up onto the fingertips. Using those inhales, opening the chest towards the mat. Exhales, just feeling that torso melt down. So really getting this opening along the front of the upper body. And then coming back to all fours, let's take our downward dog, tucking these toes under. Lifting up through sit bones. If you prefer your downward puppy modification, you're welcome to hold there. I'll be coming down to mine in a sec. And if we'd like to pedal out, check in with those hamstrings. Ooh, big part of our posture in terms of the lower back. That tightness can come from sitting down a lot, those tight hammies. Let's walk these feet forwards, coming into our ragdoll. Getting that lengthening down the back of the legs as we walk it in. Bend those knees as much as we like here. Take our fold, resting that tummy to the thighs, hands to opposite elbows, introducing that little sway. And back to center, release those fingertips to the mat. Let's slowly uncurl our way. So we're stacking vertebra. Slow and gentle, bend through those knees. Taking our shrug of the shoulders at the top into our Tadasana, fingers spread wide. Relaxing down the back of the body, opening through the chest. We'll inhale, hands rise. As we exhale, folding forward. So we're keeping this heart open. Bend those knees if we're tight through the hammies or the lower back. We'll inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Bend the knees this time. Inhale, rise it up. Take that breath in to lengthen all the way. Lengthen through the fingertips. On our exhale, open heart, taking our back bend. Inhale, lift. Exhale, dive it over. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Another 2 half lifts here. So on that in-breath, really focus on our form here. We're lengthening through the crown of the head. Exhale, folding forwards. Keep those shoulders drawn back as we inhale. One more. Exhale, fold. Reverse our swan dive. So press through the feet. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, heart open. Inhale, lift. Exhale, fold. Half lift. Hands to mat, high plank. So stepping back. Holding here for a few breaths. So positioning ourselves. Remember, we can be on toes or we can lower to the knees. But we want to keep that core working, drawing, feeling those front tips of the hips draw towards the ribs. It'll lengthen out that lower back. Take another breath in here. Exhale, let's lower it down, chaturanga. Keep those elbows in tight. Inhale for our back bend. We can take our cobra or our upward facing dog, and then exhale, downward facing dog. Pedal it out or drawing those heels towards the mat. Let's inhale that left heel to the sky. Exhale, stepping through crescent lunge. So tucking, so we're on the ball of that back foot, rising up, getting stable. And then feeling those shoulders, shoulder blades, relaxing down the back of the body as we deepen into our hips a little here. Take a breath in. Exhale, hands to heart center. We're going to push off into our warrior three. So we're pressing off that back foot, taking our balance here on this left leg. So we're lifting up through that right heel. That left leg can either be straight or we can bend through that knee for that extra support. Keep the crown of the head lengthening out towards the front. So remembering what I said about steadying the breath. Notice, is the breath shaky? If we can bring that in to be more stable or more fluid, it'll help with those little wobbles. From here, we're going to come into a 4-point pose. So we're going to keep balancing on this left foot. We're going to draw that right knee towards the chest. We can either hold here, so coming upright, balancing on that left foot, or taking that right foot across the left thigh and coming down into our number 4 pose. So we're still nice and tall through the torso, but just taking a balance here. So mine's coming out of balance. So a good time to have a chair, a couch, a wall, if we're feeling a little bit off center this morning. And then gently making our way tall. We're still balancing, drawing this right heel towards the sky, coming back to our warrior 3 position. And then we're going to take our right foot to the left side of our left foot. So we're placing it down for a wrap. Release the hands towards the mat. We'll inhale a half lift. Get nice and long through this spine. Exhale, fold it forwards. So feeling this lengthening down that right hamstring here, or the back of the right leg. From here, we're going to slowly uncurl our way to standing. We're going to bring our balance back to that left foot. So we're taking hands to heart center. We're coming into our tree pose. So hands to heart center. I'll spin around to face you here. So as we come up, we can bring that right foot in towards the heel, towards the calf, or if it's available, on the inside of that left thigh. So we're opening up through the hips. If that knee's coming in, just see if we can open it out. Just mindful we're not pressing that foot against the knee. Either holding here or on that in-breath, we can extend up tall, branching out through the arms. If you'd like an extra little challenge, go the windy tree. So adding that dynamic movement again through the arms. So we're keeping that vision, our gaze, our drishti steady here. And check in with that breath. How stable are we in the breath? And how does that affect the stability of the body? We'll return hands back to heart center. We're keeping this balance. We're going back to our warrior three. So hands to heart center, taking that right leg back nice and long. A little pivot here. Returning to our crescent lunge, releasing that back foot to the mat. We'll inhale, hands tall. Whoa, I'm getting shaky here. Exhale, release the hands. We're going to interlace them behind the hips. Opening up through the chest, relax those shoulders. Seeing if we can deepen into our lunge a little further. We're getting that opening through the right hip flexor. And opening that heart towards the ceiling or the top corner of our room. Releasing our bind. Inhale, hands rise. Exhale, frame that front foot, stepping back to our high plank. We're moving through our flow here. Inhale, prepare. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, open. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhaling, right heel to sky. Exhale, step it through. Crescent lunge on our opposite side. Take our time, get steady. When we're ready, rising up. So we're finding that lunge position here. Ooh. And deepening into a little bit. So we're strong, we're stable on two legs first. Taking those hands to heart center, warrior three, pushing off that back foot. Finding our balance here, so our gaze on the floor down in front of us. Extending through the crown of the head, gentle tuck of the chin. As we lift that left heel nice and tall. Keeping that chest open, so we don't want to hunch into our balance. Nice and long through the spine. It's as if that piece of string is pulling us through the crown of the head and the heel. Those left toes are drawn back in towards the chest. We're nice and long through the back of the leg, strong and engaged through the front muscles of the leg. Coming into our 4-point pose, so keeping this balance if we can. Draw that left knee towards the chest. Option to hold here, working through the core to keep that knee tall, or taking that left foot across the right thigh, taking our time. Coming down to our 4-point pose. That gaze is steady. You might be feeling it through that right glute a little bit here. Notice now, are we tensing to hold here? So are we at ease with our balance? So even if we're feeling centered, are we tensing to be here? Or can we relax down a little bit further, just melting down through that right foot? From here, we're coming back to our warrior three, so slowly coming tall, drawing that knee to chest, seeing if we can keep this balance. That left heel lifting tall. And then taking that left foot to the right side of our right foot, taking our wrap of the legs. Once we're stable, inhale, half lift. Exhale to fold. So getting this lengthening down that left side now. And slowly uncurling. So transferring that body weight to the right leg, this left foot coming around this time. I'll do my little twist. Coming into our tree variation, either foot to heel, resting against that calf. Maybe taking it, that inner thigh. Set our gaze. Soften in here, then option to extend these arms up. Branching out. Ooh, I'd like to hold here, holding here. I'm going to navigate my doorway there. I'd like to add that dynamic movement. We can come into our windy tree. Ooh. This is best done without talking. Check the breath. Check the tension in the face. So we want to be at ease with our stability or instability. Maybe making peace with the fact that we're not feeling very balanced this morning. That's just part of the practice. We all have our good days and bad days. All right, coming back to our tree, hands to heart center. Keep this balance. I'm going to do my little pivot warrior 3. And then releasing down for our lunge. We're going to inhale these hands to rise. Exhale, we're taking these hands behind the hips, interlacing. We're getting this opening through the thoracic. Our upper back, as these shoulders rest down. So this position, especially if we've got that tight lower back, we don't want that dumping in the lower back. So if we're opening our chest, but we're feeling that compression, focus on drawing those hips, the front of the hips towards the ribs. So you're feeling that core contract, and you feel that stretch more through the hip flexor rather than a dump into the lower back. And release the bind. Inhale, hands rise. Exhale, frame the foot, taking our flow, stepping back. Our vinyasa, moving with the breath. And this time, I like to balance all of our balance out without balance by lowering these knees to the mat. So we're grounding now. We're coming to our child's pose. Bring those big toes to touch. And let as much of ourselves now come into contact with the floor as we can. So in this child's pose, just noticing the areas of the body that are in contact. Seeing if we can melt that down a little further. This is grounding, feeling ourselves sink in here. And our next inhale, let's come up to our tabletop. We'll stretch down along these lats. Another group of muscles that can get tight. So we're taking our right hand out over the left. Take a breath in at the top. Use our exhale to lengthen down here as we lower the hips towards the heels. So we should feel that stretch along that right side. We can position that right hand wherever's comfortable. So if we'd like to take a little further and creepy crawly that hand out, we can. Might deepen the stretch along that right side. Or maybe taking that torso a little further over to the right is another way to get to deepen into a little. And just making sure we're not overexerting. If as soon as that breath, if it shortens or holds to get into a stretch, we don't want that. We just want to be at ease. So finding that sweet spot, the top of the bell curve. Not too little, not too much. Making our way back up to all fours. Swapping sides, so left arm, left hand, out and over. Take that breath in. We're using our exhale. We want to feel that lengthening as we lower down. We're not just slumping into it. Feel the stretch along that left side this time. You can reposition the hand. Get comfortable here. And take Any movement, if we'd like to walk the hand over, draw that torso across. And back up to all fours. We'll walk these hands forwards. We're going to lower our chest down towards the mat here. So resting and give ourselves enough space so that our forehead can rest to the floor. So we're going to take the tops of the feet or tops of the toes are pressed into the floor so that the knees come off the mat. We're going to interlace the fingers behind the head so the elbows are resting on the floor out to the side. And then we're going to elevate through the elbows. And if it's available, lifting the forehead off the mat. We're watching that chin doesn't poke forwards. We're going to keep nice and long in the back of the neck. And then releasing the forehead down and the elbows down. Elbows up, forehead's up. So we're pressing in through the toes. We're engaging the muscles of the upper back. Forehead down, elbows down. So we're just going to continue to move in time with the breath. So inhale, elbows up. Forehead up, keep that belly button drawn in. Core working, forehead down, elbows down. So just in our own time. One more. Final round. And then placing these palms underneath the armpits. We're going to take our right arm out. I'm going to need a little bit more space. I'm going to slide out. Our right arm out at about 45 degrees. Adding a little bend to the elbow. We're going to press through this left hand, taking our chest stretch. So we're getting this stretch through that right pec muscle. Or muscles, pec major, pec minor. So keeping that right shoulder low. Should feel that stretch through that right side of our chest. If you need to play with that hand position, move it around to wherever feels comfortable. And use this left hand just to gently leverage our way up. Or leverage our way open. Probably a better description. So this is a little floor version of our doorway stretch. Have you ever done a chest stretch against the doorway where you put your arm up and open it? That's what we want it to feel like. Okay, let's release this side, coming back through center. So that right hand returns back underneath the armpit. Left arm out, 45 degrees, a little bend to the elbow. And using that right palm, pressing open, getting that stretch through that left side chest this time. So this is again another one that we probably don't stretch too often. It's the tightness through the chest, so it can contribute to that hunching of the upper back. The more we can release this tension through the chest, the less we have that pull in front of the body. And relaxing back to center. Bringing both these palms underneath the armpits. A little bit of do a reverse chaturanga this morning. So toes or knees. We're going to inhale our way up nice and tall. Keep that core working. Exhale, lowering back down. Taking our back bend on our in-breath. So either that cobra or upward facing dog. And then exhale, down dog, lifting those sit bones to sky. Let's inhale. That left heel towards the sky as we exhale, stepping it outside that left hand. So we're coming into our lizard lunge. How are we doing for time? Not great. So anyone at Pace Fitness is watching this video. I'm probably going to be late for my meeting. Okay, we'll get back to yoga options. So we can either deepen that stretch down. So lowering that torso on the inside of that left thigh. If we'd like to target that hip flexor, if it's available, taking hold of that back foot, drawing that heel into hip. So we're at home watching this. If you've got a yoga strap, great, it works great. If you've got a tea towel, a hand towel, or a t-shirt, if you can't quite reach it, they're all good little props that we can use if you do want to take this position as an option. But it's not quite in reach. Those are other little ways. Or maybe just try bringing that right knee a little further forwards. It'll help with it as well. Yeah, I have a work, those watching live, I have a work meeting that I forgot about, which is directly after this class. Which is why I was going to make it a shorter class, but we're up to the good part with the deep stretching now anyway. So how could I possibly do the disservice of shortening this time? After all the balance you've been through. Alright, let's release hold of that back foot if we've taken it. If we're deepening down through the torso, pressing back up through the hands, walking or scooting this left foot to center, lengthening nice and long to our hamstring fold. So leg either bent or straight. Take a breath in, just bring that length into the upper body as well. We're not after a straight spine, but just want to avoid that hunching if it's introduced. So folding from the hips, that belly button coming towards that left thigh, as we continue to draw that left hip further behind us. If you'd like to take Hanumanasana, our monkey pose, if our hips are feeling warm and prepared, we can start to create that extra space. So talking about that bell curve that I mentioned earlier, not too much, not too little. It's the Goldilocks spot. So we want to find that point of comfortably uncomfortable, where we can breathe through the discomfort, so still be at ease with our breath through the discomfort, but we're not pushing ourselves or forcing ourselves through pain of any sort. And let's ease our way back out. So we can, if we've taken that split option, drawing these legs closer together, we can walk the hands out to the right if that feels good. We're coming back to child's pose, so bringing big toes to touch. After the splits, when we do these, it's nice to just take a few breaths of rest here in our child's pose. It can be quite an intense stretch through those hips, hamstrings, so just notice if there's any residual sensation. We're just feeling that dissolve out here. We're going to make our way to downward facing dog. If you'd like to go straight into it, you can. If you'd like to take a flow, a vinyasa, we can move through high plank, taking our chaturanga, our back bend, and then coming back to meet. Once we've found our downward dog, inhaling that right heel to sky. Exhale, stepping that right foot outside the right hand. So we want to have that right knee over the right heel. Just check in with that shin that it's vertical. And options again, we can start to deepen down here. If we've got pillows, blankets, bolsters, anything that we'd like for support here, if that hunch comes in to take either palms or forearms to floor, use that support. Or again, our alternative, taking hold of the foot, heel to hip. You should really feel that in that left hip flexor. So back to our postural talk. So these hip flexors, you would have heard me cue a fair few times if you've been practicing with me a while. Tips of the hips towards the ribs. So these hip flexors, when they're tight, they pull the front of the hips down, brings that compression, that lower back pain into those lower vertebrae. So these hip flexor stretches really counteract any sitting that we do, any tightness in the lower back. It's worth this initial discomfort, comfortable discomfort. Taking hold of the back foot, releasing down, pressing back up with the hand so we can scoot this right foot into center. Taking our hamstring fold, lengthening through that right leg, draw that right hip back, right toes towards the chest. And option if we'd like to, that right heel can come forward, or that left knee back. Finding again that Goldilocks spot for ourselves. It's different for everybody, but I think we all know what it feels like. We're sensing in to that sensation of the muscle. Otherwise, that breath is always a good indicator. If you can be at discomfort but still breathing steadily and be at ease with the breath, you'll be pretty close to that spot. If we're holding it, if we're in a stretch and we're steady in the stretch but it's getting difficult to breathe, we've probably pushed ourselves a bit too far. When we're ready, easing our way out. So whichever option we've taken, taking our time. So we're into our child's pose, we're taking that full rest of the hips. A moment to come back to the breath, check in. If we've become a bit shallow, breathing into the chest, extend that inhale deep to the belly. Taking our time on the exhales. And find our own way to downward dog, transition of choice, yogi's choice. I'm going to come straight up this morning. Ooh. So lengthening down the back of the legs, lifting through those sit bones. We're going to walk the hands a little closer towards each other. We're gazing forwards, bend the knees, step or hop the feet outside the hands at the front, so that we're coming into our yogi squat. If we can ground through the heels, otherwise if they pop up, just getting comfortable there. We're taking those elbows to the inner thighs, pressing the palms together. So getting our opening in our yogi squat. Final balance option this morning. Seems so long ago since we did our last balances. So if you'd like to take an arm balance this morning, our crow, we can take hands to the mat, spreading those fingers wide, lifting up through the sit bones, bringing those knees to the upper or to the top of our upper arms. And we can maybe just have a play, if it's not part of our regular practice, have a play with transitioning the weight into the arms. So taking some of the weight to balance in the arms. Otherwise, we can alternate or bring both of those feet off the mat. Keep that gaze steady if we're holding there. Keep those fingers spread wide. So either option, holding our crow or our yogi squat. So if we've taken our yogi squat option, maybe pressing, if it's comfortable, pressing the fingertips towards each other. If we've got that crow, should have mentioned this at the beginning, but if you've got a pillow or a blanket, if you're feeling unsteady, a pillow or blanket right in front of you is a nice little safety net. Whichever option we've taken, we'll come back to our feet, either one hand or both, around behind us so that we can ease our way to sit back on the floor. We'll come into our boat pose. So Extending those fingertips nice and long. We can either keep those feet to the floor or elevating those shins parallel to the mat. Open through the chest on an inhale. Keep that core working as we exhale, lowering down. Resting the feet and the head to the mat. Let's draw these knees in towards the chest. Adding that little sway left and right. Like we did at the beginning, just noticing how we're feeling through these hips, through this lower back, through the neck and shoulders while we're at rest here. And then lowering those feet to the floor. We'll take the soles of the feet to touch, opening those knees away from each other, our Supta Baddha Konasana. So this is definitely didn't become the 45-minute class I thought it would. We can rest those hands however's comfortable. Check in with that breath a little further, maybe placing one hand to the tummy, one to the chest. I want to feel that breath. Each inhale fills up the belly, noticing it spread up to the chest. Release from the chest, down and out the belly. Draw the knees in towards each other. Maybe just take a little left or right here. Those legs, loosening up that lower back. And then coming back to center, making our way into our final Shavasana. Lengthening the legs, the arms out to the sides. Take a moment to get settled. Any last little movements? Enjoying these last few moments of complete rest. Just starting to notice the quality of that breath. So the quantity and the quality. Full belly breaths. As smooth as we can, transitioning from one to the next. As we add a wriggle to fingers and toes. And taking a big inhale to lengthen these arms up overhead, taking our full body stretch, fingertips to toe tips. As we roll over to one side. Gently making our way up to seated. Sitting tall, just notice that posture, lengthening through the crown of the head as we take hands to heart center, feeling those shoulders, shoulder blades relaxed down. This moment to check in at the end of our practice. To be grateful to ourselves for taking the time to come to our mats. Especially when we're around the house, it's easy to get distracted by other things. Just noticing how this practice of yoga sets us up for the rest of our day. As we bow our heads to our hands, we honor ourselves and each other with Namaste. Thank you very much, everybody.